Hello, happy Samhain, happy Halloween, everyone. This is Amy, the Mystic Rose Tarot. It is Sunday, October 31st, and I'm here to share with you a little bit more of a somewhat in-depth reading for the Samhain day, the upcoming days. We have Dia de los Muertos, All Souls Day, All Saints Day, whatever belief you follow. The next few days, most of this week, I would say, is a week of celebration and remembrance of those who've passed on. At this time, people are connecting with their ancestors in a way like Dia de los Muertos. You're celebrating the life of someone that was very special to you. Altars are being created, larger than life-size altars for some people. And I did my live yesterday on YouTube, and I want to thank again everyone who listened, watched, my two participants, Julianne Victoria and Michelle Marie, for coming in and sharing some really interesting and somewhat disturbing for some people experiences that they've had with paranormal or unknown crossings of energy that just was something out of the norm. So I thank those two for coming in and sharing those stories. And we pulled cards towards the end of the live. And I did a post. The card that I pulled was the bat. And I'll briefly show the card and briefly talk about, because I want to jump into this reading that I pulled specifically for Samhain. This is from the Witches Oracle, which I always use as a starting ground when I'm doing my Sabbat readings. So here's the card that I pulled, Rebirth and Consciousness. And I'm going to move this card closer so people can see. And excuse me. Thank you. Thank you above for the blessings. So, the bat. Okay, the bat is a nocturnal creature. It's a creature that unfortunately gets a bad stigma in regards to its relation to folklore and being vampiric in a transformational way. That bats can transform into the living dead of vampires. But here, the bat, the mammal, is all instinctual. Bats they're technically blind, but they have an extremely keen sense of hearing. They can hear from many, many, many miles away, and that's their guide. I shouldn't say they're technically blind. They have some sight, but at night, they use their ears for their sight, for moving around. So that instinctualness that the bat has when it comes to maneuvering itself around night is a very interesting quality, because it is following the instincts and hoping that it doesn't fly into a tree or anything like that. And the connection too with this card, we have the full moon, and we know the full moon for lunar energy. The full moon is one of the more powerful phases of the moon, as opposed to the new moon, which is just as powerful, but the new moon is more about reflection and getting ready to manifest, while the full moon is everything going to its fullest potential. And the bat here can represent just that. The bat is that guidance. It's that realm, even though it's in the conscious realm, it's in the external realm, it's outside doing its thing, flying around. It is still very much a instinctual creature. And so, again, it listens to sounds. It's listening to sound wave patterns. So they have a very high sense of knowing their environment, how to maneuver, how to move around. And I can almost say that bats are almost emotional in a sense because they have that connection to the subconscious. Here, we see the reflection of the bat. So here we have the subconscious waters, the unknown, the deeper side of who we are, the side that people are trying to figure out, trying to explore, trying to heal, trying to embrace so that it can move out of this realm, share its knowledge, share what it's learned, and share it out in the external world. And we have the lotus. We have the two lotuses, which is representative of spirituality, trust, and beauty. And so I feel in this reflection here, let's do it like this. I'm going to do this just to kind of block here. There we go. Okay. So here we have this energy here, okay? So it's just turning inward, which many of us are doing around this time of the year, the season. We become more reflective and we start looking for solace and for answers inwardly than outwardly. And once we've discovered that, once we've had the spiritual awakening, this rebirth, as it's stated here, in our own consciousness, we definitely start feeling a shift, and a shift for the greater good of who we are and how we fit in this realm. And being honest too, when you're doing any kind of work that is of reflection, of healing, inner healing, you have to be very honest with yourself. But the beauty of the bat is that bat will be there to guide you. The bat is the creature that will lead you in the darkness and guide you to that inner light. Almost when seeing this card and just reflecting on it, I was thinking about the hermit. You know, the hermit is the inner part, but we see it in cards in its external state, in its outside realm, holding the lamp. But here with the bat has its own instinct, its own way of connecting. And that is its light. That is its guiding source. And so if you trust in that energy, when it comes to going into the darker side of things, doing any kind of shadow work or healing, know that once you've gone through those processes, you can move on to the next level. And as you start growing in that process, that shift, you will start recognizing. You're like, something's different. And for people who have a spiritual practice, they know that. They know when something's different, something has shifted. So that's the card that I pulled for last night, the bat, in relation to the rebirth of one's consciousness. Spiritual awakening is what I call this card, which is perfect for this time of year, because we are connecting with different aspects of our practice, for those who have a metaphysical practice. And a time of reflection, especially, as I mentioned, over those that have passed on. It doesn't have to be serious, but it is a time that you really start thinking about things and how the past year has been. Alrighty, so that was from the Witches Oracle. So for this reading for Samhain, Halloween, All Saints Day, All Souls Day, All Hallows Eve. The first card that I pulled for this reading as a guiding source is the crystal ball. And as you can see there, it says insight. Okay. So I'm going to move this card closer So those can take a look at the detail. And we have the wisdom of the owl flying right above, almost towards this crystal ball. Now, this card isn't saying that you need to have a crystal ball to divine your insight. The crystal ball here is basically your own soul, your own spirit, accessing the knowledge that we have and putting it to use, learning from it, removing oneself from our external plane. Like I said, this is a season where things are moving more inward. And the crystal ball can be the form of ourselves, looking inside ourselves. You know, the lamp for the hermit, the crystal ball here. We all have a light inside, and many people aren't aware of it, or they just don't know how to use it, how to manifest it. This is a time to, I shouldn't say find your crystal ball, but to really, if you feel like something's missing, your answer, and I believe this beyond a shadow of a doubt, your answer is actually inside. You already know the answer. It's already there. Again, you need to access it. Okay. And to access this, and I love the fact that it's by a running creek here, you know, it's showing to connect with the ever-changing aspects of our internal self, with our emotions. I also want to point out, so I'm going to show the card once again. If you look closely, we got the moon, Venus, the sun, Mercury. And this I do not know. Maybe this the three phases, like maiden, mother, crone, son, father, elder, perhaps. There's knowledge to be seen in those processes of the individual, masculine and feminine. So this card, the crystal ball, is going to be the focus, the center of the other cards that I pulled. I just did 3 other cards because I could pull a lot of information from cards. So there are times that I feel like I don't even need to do a large spread unless there's something a little bit more complicated. But being that this is Samhain, this is an open guided reading for this time of the year. So the cards that I have here, I'm working with a different deck. I was going to work with the Wildwood Tarot, but when I've had a moment this week, it's been pretty busy for me. I've decided to connect with the Gill Tarot, which I've already done a video about. I'm still exploring it, but I felt called to work with this deck specifically for this reading for Samhain. Excuse me. So this deck works more with the energies of the tree of life, and that's something that I'm slowly exploring. And the 3 cards that I pulled here, I'm going to show you them very quickly. This is Ace of Discs, wealth. Second card is Prince of Cups, which could be considered the Knight of Cups. Okay, so remember our focus right now, our insight. Okay, so cards that I pulled around this involves using our inner intuition, or our intuition, which is inner. And then I have the Fool. Beautiful Fool. So, and it was interesting, before I jump into this reading, when I pulled the card of the Bat, and Julianne and Michelle pulled the other cards, I believe Julianne had the Knight, not the Knight, the King of Swords, and I think Michelle had the number 22 in a particular deck, and her card had lilies, or lotuses, I should say, on it as well. And it was in the realm of water. So what was interesting is when I was listening to their interpretation, I kept feeling liberation, like freedom of spirituality, free-spirited, that kept coming to me. And so it's interesting that what I pulled here can, in a way, tie in to what I was feeling last night. So with the Ace of Discs, okay, wealth. This doesn't necessarily, even though it's held in the element of earth, which rules various states of wealth, material wealth, your own health, and also spiritual health. I think when it comes to the pentacles, coins, and discs, in readings, I don't hear a lot about people focusing on the spiritual health aspect of that groundingness that the discs and pentacles can have when it comes to someone's practice. We see the pentacles as something very material, something that we could touch, something that we make an investment in, and we see the results. But this also applies spiritually. And so with this card, the Ace of Discs, I'm clearly feeling for this time during Samhain is utilize what knowledge you have, the experience that you have already. Or if you are learning and you're growing, make sure that what you are exploring is something that you feel dedicated to, something that you feel is going to, something that you're going to benefit from. Because I know there are a lot of people that are exploring different forms of divinatory practices, and they're kind of confused. I see, oh, it's not happening. I'm not getting the answers that I'm thinking about. So what happens is this becomes a forced kind of energy. They're expecting something to happen. They don't know what it is, but they're expecting something to happen. And I feel with any practice, that isn't the way to approach things. You do have to work, you do your prayers, you do your mantras, you do the energy, you put the energy into these things to start growing it, to start growing that force so that it gets big enough and it could get sent out to the universe. So whoever feels or gets the draw of whatever you've put out, it will reach to them. But if you're still uncertain and you're saying that you have a practice, but nothing's coming to you, or you feel you're not benefiting from it, that's where you need to stop. Okay? And like I was saying with the Bat, look into yourself. What's missing? Ask yourself what's missing. And I know some people are going to say, I don't know what's missing. And I think when you don't know what's missing, there's something deep down that's pushing. It's almost forcing you to try, and it's not happening. You have to let it go. And that's what I was saying. There's that liberation. Going back here with the card of wisdom, of the owl, with the crystal ball, the insight, that inner knowledge, accessing that energy through the sun, the moon, finding love, also communicating. Those are the symbols that we have there with the moon for our emotional intuitive self, the love with Venus, the sun, and then with Mercury, how we communicate, how we get that out into the ethers. And it does take time. And as I move on through this reading, if you are struggling with your practice, okay, and you feel like you're trying or you're forcing, I think it's best to maybe stop and take a time out from your practice. Do something else, because whenever you force something, it can you're putting too much control over it. You're not letting it flow. There's too much Saturn type energy that's being put into something that you're trying to grow. You're trying to put too much control into it. You may not be aware of it, but you are. And so let it go. I took a break from my practice for quite some time, long time actually. And then the call, the energy, I heeded the answer, if you will, to go back to my practice. And it feels right. And it feels like this is where I need to be. Okay. I'm not here to convert anyone, but you will know which direction is good for you. You keep exploring as much as you can. And then, but for this particular reading, start finding what you need, what is missing in your practice. Call upon your ancestors. For those who connect with gods and goddesses, call out to them if you work with that energy. Okay? That's the start of building wealth of any form. What do you want? And I'm listening to myself say this because I feel like I'm on the other side of this camera listening. It's like, what do I want? I know what I want, but I have to still work for it and try not to get impatient. Second card I have here, and there's no layout for this. These are cards that I'm pulling to tie everything together. I showed you the Prince of Creativity, the Prince of Cups, Knight of Cups. Here we have an individual. Now here we see the connection of earth with the mud right there. And then we have the realm of the waters, the subconscious. We can associate this to Pisces for the Knight of Cups, but I won't for this reading. Okay. Here is an interesting amalgamation of energy. Look at the face. Okay. The Cups is sort of in a daydream state, this Prince of Cups. He's creating, he's in the process of working with the realms of where he or she is at this moment, but also feeling very strong emotional connection. And I feel because of the gaze, like not really looking down, just kind of looking away, the daydream gaze, this prince is in a place of where like the Queen of Cups in this deck is assigned the word contemplation. Feeling at that moment, connecting to how this process is coming along of creativity. Okay. So if the best way that I could probably explain this card is like when you're in the moment of creating something, producing something, you're in the flow. Okay. You've done this before, and you just kind of like feel. You can see the different ways that artists approach their work, especially artists that use their hands. And when it comes to like welding or anything like that. They're following it technically, but they're also following it as an artist in an intuitive way. So this is another extension of the wealth, the Ace of Discs. This is our connection of acknowledging what we know already, listening to our experience, our inner experience, or the processes of what's changing inside, and just moving with it. No control. Okay? Again, it's going to that feeling of liberation that just came to me when listening to the readings that all three of us were doing. Just go with it. But at the same time, Julia and Victoria made a point during this time of the year, it can be overwhelming spiritually, emotionally for a lot of people. We have to remain grounded. Okay? So there's a sense of stillness here. Okay? But the process, the flow, the connection to what's being made is still going. Like going with the flow. Next card that I have here. And this basically ties it up. And these are cards, I don't select cards specifically when I do readings. I shuffle, so on and so forth. But I like how at times when I do readings, they sometimes tie in together. Okay, so we have the beginnings of understanding what do we need for wealth. What do we need? What is most important for us? That Ace of Discs. And once you know what you want, that starts the process of making things happen. But also, let things come to you. Okay? But keep moving. That's the whole key. The card that I got here was the Fool, or is the Fool, which I think is appropriate. So many different ways to interpret the Fool. We see various depictions of the Fool, for the most part, just taking that one step, that one leap of fate, and whatever happens, happens. And the energy, the backdrop is bright, it's open. We have the loyalty and the guidance of the animal companion, of the dog, right there, also watching, but looking upward, looking the same direction as the Fool, looking upward, and almost guiding the Fool. It's like, yeah, go ahead and just look up, and whatever happens, happens. Taking that chance, having that freedom. I think the best kind of experience you can have in life is just that freedom. And so, we have the various stages of life. When we're in our 20s, 30s, everything's fun, all this, I should say for the most part for the 20s. Once the 30s come, the door sort of slams, the door slams. And it's like, okay, it's not fun anymore. Now it's time to get to business. But the Fool will come up throughout any individual's stage of life. When they're young teen, young adult, young elder. And the Fool can also represent potentially the lack of freedom or too much freedom. But with these cards here, I feel with the Fool coming in this reading, and also the insight, the wisdom that we're gaining, these two work hand in hand with each other. You gain knowledge by experience. You gain knowledge by taking chances. You gain knowledge by exploring and seeing and just seeing what happens and trusting and being prepared for whatever happens. But at this point, this card is telling you to, both of these cards are telling you to listen to what's going on inside. Okay. It's not a time of questioning. It's a time of movement. Even though we're moving more inwardly during this time of the year, we're still moving, we're still processing information. And then, when spring comes out, everything's manifesting, everything is sprouting, things are becoming more external. That's another form of movement. The movement during those seasons tends to be a little bit more action-oriented, more fiery, and because of the essence of manifesting and growing, and also finding groundingness at that time. Then when we get towards summer and fall, that energy slowly starts decreasing, and we start becoming a little bit more self-reflective. Okay. So with the Fool, even though we're in a time of listening and following how we feel, be open-minded too at the same time. I was watching a clip on YouTube. It's like a short story. And one of the key themes throughout the story was about being open-minded, taking chances, listen to everything, experience opportunities that are there, don't miss opportunities. And this almost goes full circle when you think about it. Okay. So with the Fool, okay, that leap of faith, letting go, whatever happens, happens. You discover a side of yourself, a spiritual shift, a spiritual freedom, liberation, that in turn, as that shifts in you, it will start coming out externally. There are people who you can see that have a wealth. They have like a goodness about themselves. They don't have a lot of material value, like very expensive things. They are just so rich in spirit that particular experience that individual is going through is priceless. You can't put a value on someone who is just spiritually feeling so good, and people learn, people listen to individuals like that because they've gone through a lesson, many lessons, and they've come out of it, and they acknowledge it, and they embrace it. Because they did this. So just think about this. Maybe take a different perspective with how you approach your spiritual practice. What I mean by that is, some people do things right by the book. They read books and they do things literally by the book. And I love books beyond belief. I don't have a library, but I have some books. I hold great respect. But I feel, for me personally, I don't need a whole bunch of books, because I read, I get information that I feel is very important and that can be relevant to me. And then it's how I use that knowledge. That's where the creativity comes in. Okay. Like Pisces, As I mentioned, Prince of Cups, Pisces. Okay. Even though they're deeply in their own realm, they are highly creative individuals. And I think it's because them being a mutable sign, they just kind of go with what's going on at the moment. They're emotionally sporadic. They just do things emotionally that comes to them, and it just feels natural, and they do it. And that's what I feel is one means of exploring this creativity in this Prince of Cups. Utilizing what we have, but doing it differently. Doing it in a way that makes it your own, that makes it unique. Remember what I was saying too with the bat. Okay. Being truthful and honest with yourself. That leads to someone who is very authentic and unique. And those people tend to stand out more from the others because they know how to communicate in so many different ways. They understand the processes, and the energy of working from the heart, connecting it to the mind, putting it out externally, whether it's a book, a song, anything like that, words that they have to say, a speech. There are some people that are just naturally gifted because they know how to use all those different energies, and they find that one energy that works with them and it connects with them in a very natural way that they can express what they need to with other people. But the premise in all this is it's finding that wisdom within. So during the Samhain week, as people are working with their practice, paying respect and celebrating those who were on this plane and were of guidance and of wisdom, and they listened and they learned. This is a time that we can not pay back, but just embrace those moments that we had. And this reading can apply to all of those. So really, don't be so restrictive. Just let things go. Let things flow. Fear. This is the time of year that people's fears can start building up. Address that and see what the issue is, what's holding you back. Alrighty. So that's the reading for Samhain. Any questions, any comments, please feel free to leave them below. I have a website that I do readings, that I book readings through right now through November, or until November 12th, which is on a Friday, 11:59 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, because we're going to go back an hour next week. I'm offering a 15% discount on all my readings. So if you are interested in me doing a reading, I have a menu of different readings that are there. I have a list of decks. I need to update the list of decks that I work with. So if there's a particular deck that you would like me to work with, I can do that as well. But for Samhain, let's be more open with who we are and how we communicate with other people. And not to hold fear. Everything's fine. Once you've trounced your fears, no matter how small or big it is, you look back and you're like, oh, wow. I remember when I went through that, and now look where I am, hopefully in a better place. But you can overcome it. Alrighty. Happy Samhain, everyone. Happy Halloween. I will be back. I have one or two more videos I'm going to try and post this week. But in the meantime, feel free to contact me. I'd like to hear your thoughts, how you reflect upon the readings that I have here for Samhain. Alrighty, I will see you all soon. Thank you so much for your support.